What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato, and today's conversation is with Phebe Trotman. Phebe is an ex-professional soccer player turned entrepreneur and author of a book called Never Quit on a Bad Day. It is such a perfect title for a book because the bad days are the ones that create the identity that you're after and create the habits that you're after. We talk about everything from shifting your perspective so you can start to appreciate the progress that you've had to how to overcome the bad days whenever they do show up. Not if they show up, but when they do show up, to also how to recognize if your social group is an anchor to you or a propeller to you, if they're keeping you down or if they're moving you forward. This is a very, very uplifting conversation with lots of nuggets. Make sure you do have a pen and paper so that you can take some notes. Enjoy this conversation with Phebe Trotman. All right. Phebe, how are you today? We already got to hear your workout was exhausting, it sounds like. And it's good that you did that because the first question I was going to ask you was about a prompt that I saw on one of your old Instagram posts from probably a couple of years ago at this point. And it said, what did it say? I wrote it down. Every day, do something your future self will thank you for. And I was going to ask you what you did today, but you already answered that question. So what's another thing that you've done today that your future self will thank you for?
I have organized some social media posts to go out in the future. So that is a win for me in
Always.
terms of my social media presence. I'm
Yep.
working on that every single day. So
Yep.
yeah, that's one of my favorite quotes. It always just sticks in my mind to every day. And I just
Yep.
encourage people to do that. Just do at least one thing, right? Multiple
Thing.
things for sure.
Mhm.
However, if you can only do one thing, make sure it's a good one thing that you're going to do that your future self will always be like, yes, I'm glad you did that. What about you, Jerry? Do you have one thing?
I did also work out today, and it was a win. It was not an exhausting workout in the extent that it was like it was really hard. It was only hard because, like we were talking about, I got this sinus thing going on. So it was a
Mm,
win because I went and worked out because I woke up this morning and my energy is just like very baseline right now, the last
gotcha.
2 days. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do everything that I have written down, but I'm just going to do 70 or 80% of it. So I did that, and that was a big win.
Well done. Good job.
And that plays perfectly into your book, which we're going to get to in a second, which we're going to get to in a second. But first, I watched another one of your videos, and you were talking about the people that you surround yourself with and how they can be an anchor or be a propeller. I love that
Hmm.
analogy. That's actually a perfect analogy. I'm curious, how do people start to become aware on whether or not their social group is anchoring them down or propelling them forward? How do you become
Yeah,
aware?
that's awesome question. I think it's really just about, well, a couple things you can do. Number one, energy, right? How do you feel when you're around certain people? Do you feel, and not energy in the sense that you have to be like, go, 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 super energized in that way, but inspired? Do you feel uplifted? Do you feel like you're in a more joyful state? Or do you feel like you're kind of drained, that you're always the one giving, right? It's kind of monitoring that energy flow. Here's a simple test too. I always joke about it, but when that someone's name pops up on your phone, do you smile? Are you excited to talk to them? Because that's also related a little bit to energy. Do you smile, or are you kind of like, I don't know,
This
maybe I'll
person.
just hit ignore for
Mhm.
right now, right?
Yeah.
Monitoring that and just listen to the conversations, right? Sometimes it's about just being quiet and observing, especially if you're in group environment, just kind of sitting with it and listening to the conversations. Are the words that people are around you that are using, are they words of encouragement, or are they more limiting words? And so just kind of having that sense. And it's not that immediately, if you notice you have a lot of anchors around, I'm not suggesting you just drop them and move on. It's not necessarily that. Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe it's just being aware of your energy. Maybe it's slowly, adding more uplifting people to your community as you slowly start to gravitate towards them, because it's so powerful. The people that we surround ourselves with, right? I always say this, like, be careful who you share your dreams with, because you could share it with someone and they might say, yes, go for it. Jerry, you're starting a podcast. What amazing. Let's do that. Go. I'm cheering you on. Or if they start asking you all these Well, how are you going to do that? Do you have the time? Do you have this? And again, your friends and family want to support you. Sometimes those questions are coming from a place of love. However, is it going to inspire you to move forward? That's the question. And so I just always encourage people, the people you surround yourself with are so key.
Mm. And I think like you said, most of the time those people are giving you advice because they want what's best for you. But they want what's best for you through their lens, through what they're looking at, right? And part of that is based off of what they've seen you do in the past, which may also mean you need to reflect and go, what does that actually mean? What does that mean about me? Right? Because if they're like, are you sure that that's something that you want to do? Yeah, partly it's them maybe just being a curmudgeon, but it's also partly them going, well, you've tried other things like this before and things didn't work out too well, and you're going to go try another one of those things. So I
Mhm.
think on the other end of that is like sometimes you also got to look at yourself and go, okay, I'm not very happy with that response. I wish it was a little better, but maybe there's something else to this. Maybe there's something else that I also need to look at, which is that's part's not easy either, right? Looking at yourself and going, okay, there's something I need to improve on. That means I need to learn to follow through with what I'm also doing.
Absolutely. I love that point. And that's so important, right? That self-reflection, because you're right. They may be saying that because they've known you for the last
Mm,
20, 30, 40 years. And they're like, well, wait a second, you kind of, and they have those, they're kind of reflecting a little bit some of the behaviors or the language or whatever we've shown up as. And so it is important to have that moment. And it's not saying now, you can change. We have complete power to shift that. And then this might be the time that you're like, you know what? Hey friend, thank you for sharing that. You're right. I have dropped the ball, but this is where I'm making I'm planting my flag in the ground. I'm burning the boats. I'm doing things differently. And just your support and encouragement along the way would mean the world to me. Or if you see me, if my language starts changing where I'm not as, using that affirming language, you see me not doing the things that I said I was going to do, you have full permission to call me out on it because I want to make a change and do differently.
mm. That's good. Yeah, that you kind of answered my next question, which was how do you start to weed through, how do you start to have those conversations with people? I mean, and that's really what it comes down to, right? It's just having conversations with people. But also there may be some weeding through. I'm like you, I don't necessarily believe that you have to like cut people off necessarily. Now there may be some people you have to go, okay, I just can't be around this person because no matter whenever I'm around them, something bad either happens or we get in a fight every time or something like that may need to
Mhm.
happen. But it still might be important to have that conversation. So, but how do you start to even step back? Because if you start to step back, people are going to go, "Hey, I noticed that XYZ is happening. Why is XYZ happening?" Right? So how do you even start to broach that? Do you just step back slowly and see what they do? Do you have the conversation first?
Yeah, great question. I feel like everyone's going to have to evaluate that for
Mm,
themselves in terms of, is it a family member who you're going to see every single,
mm,
holiday or event or things like that. So, I think that's a really personal decision. What I would suggest doing though is, and it kind of ties back to when you look at yourself in the future, where you want to go, what you want to accomplish, your goals, your dreams, etc. Are the people that are around you right now helping you get there? Do you see them in your future in terms of what you're looking
mm,
to create? If so, then yeah, have that conversation, right? Have a conversation with them. Come from a place of love. Make sure it's, you're having the conversation as in, for example, Jerry, let's say we're having it. What I would do is I would say, well, okay, Jerry, I know I've dropped some balls in the past.
mm,
I am making a conscious effort to improve on that. And so, one of the things that would be great if you could just, when you hear me share a dream or goal, I know you want to protect me, but I'd love it if you could just encourage me and just cheer me on, check in with me whenever we see each other. I'd love it if you'd ask me how X and X and X is going or whatever it might be, in the sense that you're coming from a place of you're owning what you want to accomplish. You're saying to them, I cherish you, I value you. Your opinion, Jerry, means so much to me. And so if you can support me, that'll help me go forward versus if say other things. Or,
mm,
I think it's important to own it first and then
mm,
see how they respond to it. And again, everyone's going to have to go through that process differently. A lot of times too, though, what can happen is sometimes it'll just naturally shift in terms of, we're talking about working out, right? So if a goal of someone's is to get healthy and fit, and you're going to the gym all the time, and some of your friends just want to go out late at night and party, and you know you have a gym workout early in the morning or whatever it might be. Well, sometimes it just naturally happens where you're like, well, I kind of want to go to bed early. And, you're starting to shift the people
Yeah.
you're around. You might be going for hikes on the weekend versus going out to parties or whatever it would be. And again, I'm not saying I love to go out with my friends, and the social piece is
Sure.
very important to me as well. So I'm not saying you just cut, as we
Cut
said,
that
we don't
out.
want anyone to think we're saying just cut that out, but you just naturally start to find more people who are aligning with what you're looking to do, and time, right? There's only so much time in the day. And when you start to prioritize other activities that are important to you to help you get to your goals, your circle eventually does just sort of shift a little bit as well too. Or you bring your friends along. Hey, I'm going for a hike this
Yeah.
weekend. Do you want to
Hopefully
come?
that's what happens, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
So, like in a perfect world, that's what's going on is like, hey, I'm gonna go start this new thing, and they're like, oh yeah, that'd be great. I would love to start that with you. But at the end of the day, sometimes that doesn't happen, and sometimes you just got to make decisions. So that's totally understandable. I do think, and you said something about energy at the beginning of this. Energy is a very real thing. I just got finished reading a book. Power versus Force was the name of the book. It was pretty in depth. If I would have read it probably 2 years ago, I would not have understood it. Have you ever read a
Mm,
book where it's like you read it and you're like, I just didn't get it, and then you read it a couple years later and you're like, oh, okay, I'm there. I'm there. The book
absolutely.
the book is about like levels of consciousness, and a lot of it is about energy and the energy that you give off. And maybe that's why I wouldn't have been able to understand the book, because my level of consciousness a couple of years ago was a little lower, which is what it is. It doesn't make you a
Mhm.
bad person, just means you haven't leveled yourself to that point. But another analogy, or another perfect example of like energy and feeling the energy of somebody, is when someone walks in the room, and either they walk in and everyone's like, oh man, like the energy in the room just like drops to the bottom, or they walk in the room and everyone just like turns and looks at that person. And there's a reason why that happens. Like that person's exuding a sort of energy. That person's exuding a sort of exuberance about them. If they're that person that you're looking at. On the other end, if they're the person that you're like, oh man, like the energy in the room just dropped, like they're exuding a negative energy about them, and that's very real. I wonder how many people ask themselves what kind of energy they're giving off. How do you start to like pay attention to your own energy, you think?
Yeah, I would say it's just something, again, that self-reflection piece, right? Do people want to be around you when you walk into, how are you bringing, again, checking your energy before you walk into that room? Because I believe, there's a quote, I don't remember who said it, but attitudes are contagious. Is yours worth catching? And I would like to say energy is contagious. Is yours worth catching, right? In that sense of, when you are walking into a room, before you go into that room, check yourself, see how you're feeling. Or, do you have a smile on your face? Like smiles are so powerful. Sometimes it starts with smiling first, and then your attitude will shift, even when you're not having the best day. Or maybe it's changing your state in terms of, before you walk in a room, do 5 jumping jacks or something to get your blood
Yeah.
flowing and just to feel a little bit uplifted before you go into that room. And so, you talked about self-reflection. And I think that's such an important thing for all of us to do on a regular basis, is just kind of having that moment with yourself and being like, how do I want to show up in the world? Right. I want to personally, Phebe Trotman, I want to show up in the world that when I enter a room, that energy is lifted up. I want to, when I walk into a room, that my smile lights up other people and they start smiling and they feel a little bit better and a little bit uplifted. And when I leave the room, I'm leaving it in a better state than when I entered. That really is a gold mine when I come in contact with people. And so I do have to check my energy. Even as we said before, I was like, oh, that workout, my arms are
Yeah.
still burning from earlier,
Mhm.
right? But it's showing up, and how do you want to show up, and having that chance to have that kind of conversation with yourself, and then choosing, because it is a choice, how do we want to show up when we enter a room, when we connect with someone, when we answer the phone, when we send an email, right? Even when you're sending messages, like whether it's Facebook or Instagram, direct messages or posts or whatever it may be, how's your energy when you're writing that response or when you're writing that post, right? Because people can feel it, they can sense it. And it's so important to really check that before you press that send button or submit or whatever it is you're sending out there.
Yeah. And I think that's why transitions are also so important, but we don't have many transitions in life now. Like life just kind of runs together because the phone happens, you pick up the phone and you do it. And then someone calls you and you answer the phone, and then you're back on the laptop and you're on the laptop, blah, blah, blah. And you just kind of jump from one thing to the next. But like transitioning, I think is very important. A perfect example is coming home from work and you've had a bad day at work and you just immediately get out of the car and walk into the house and you blow up on your spouse because they just say something and you just blow up on them because you brought your bad energy in with you. So I think those transition periods, and I think it was Brendan Burchard said something to the effect of like whenever he walks through a doorway, he thinks of like the doorway as like cleaning himself of old energy, like
Mm.
from whatever happened before. So you walk through the door and like
Mhm.
that's your reset. That's your new energy, like you're a new person when you walk into that next situation. So but I wanted to go back to, you're talking about like smiling and bringing your good energy and all of that, and you clearly have developed that in yourself. I'm curious, when did you start the journey? Because maybe you've been like this your whole life and it's just kind of been easier for you to smile. We all have down times and up times and all of that, but is there like, have you had a journey where did you have something that you went through? Have you like, when did that start for you?
Yeah, great question. I wish I had a concrete answer for you. I'm not sure.
I
I've always been more of a person who smiles a lot.
More often, yeah.
That just naturally sort of is who I am. That being said, as you said, there's down times, there's times I'm frustrated. That part comes from, I think, years of adding like a gratitude practice to my day, because that is one thing that has helped me shift my energy a lot of times when I am having frustrating moments, tough moments. Taking that time. And I do want to just highlight what you said with Brendan Burchard about the doorway. I love that because that's a physical
Mhm.
reminder that it anchors you. So every time that happens, that's a great way to do it. One of the things that I did years ago is I added to my phone, I have an event that comes up every single day at 9:10 p.m. Pacific in my calendar. And it just says, I'm so happy and grateful that dot, dot, dot.
Mm,
And so I put that in, it's probably 20 years ago now that
yeah.
I first started doing that, and every single day. And I did that because at the time I was frustrated. I was frustrated. My business wasn't growing fast enough, and this wasn't happening, and that wasn't happening. And so it just forced me every single day to have that moment where I would pause, have a reset. Sometimes it would be, a 30-second, I'm so happy and grateful that I fill in the blank. Sometimes it's a longer time. And that helped me I had to be intentional first. Now it's just part of what I do. I wake
Mm,
up, I have a moment of gratitude in the morning. I have moments of gratitude throughout the day, really to help shift my energy when there are those moments of frustration or whatever that might be. But I still have that invite or that calendar event in my phone because I'm intentional with it, right? And so I just encourage people. That was something that I did years ago, and I continue to have it in there. And now gratitude, again, as I said, is just kind of a natural part of who I am, and that has helped in terms of the energy and the smiling and really bringing my best foot forward.
mhm. Yeah, like I said, it seems like, and that would, my guess would have been, is like smiling has just been something that like has been a part of you for a lot of your life. But of course, we all have to build intentionality into the day, right? We all have to build intentionality into our life, and I think that a lot of people believe that that's not the way. They believe that like they just do it for an amount of time and like it just it just happens all of a sudden. Like all of a sudden, it's just part of what you do. Exercise. Just start exercising, and suddenly it's just going to be easy. You're just going to show up all the time. Eating better. You just start eating better, and suddenly you're going to be able to overcome all the temptations that pop up in front of you at the office and at parties and so on and so forth. So there's definitely like intentionality is just, it's the thing of getting started, right? You have to
Mhm.
be intentional about it. Otherwise, you don't. And I love the reminder on the phone because it's just so simple. And if people would just set reminders on their phone for many, like so many simple things that you could set your reminders on your phone about: drinking water, having a gratitude practice, doing just simple things that you're trying to do just to remind you and nudge you in the right direction, because we're human beings. And as human beings, we are irrational and we just stop things for no reason. We just quit things for no reason. So you just have to be able to push through to the other side of that.
Absolutely, right? And there's going to be times, I work out 5 to 6 days a week. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
every single morning I wake up and I'm like, yes, today
Yeah,
is the
let's
day.
go.
Can't wait for boot camp. Like there's
Oh,
times where I'm like, oh, my bed is just comfortable today. However, it's that commitment, right? And again, I go back to like who do you want to show up as? Like, what is your future self? What does that look like? And being clear with that.
mm,
And for me personally, my future self is being fit, is feeling strong, is healthy, it's showing up, pushing myself, being committed, doing the thing that I said I would do, even when I don't feel like doing it. And so those are the days that it's still like, well, no, I'm going to the gym because that's the commitment that I've made to myself and to my future self as well. And so, yeah, as you just shared, it's so important to be intentional. And yes, absolutely set reminders for whatever you want to do that's important to you. Put a calendar invite in your phone, set it on repeat. It's such a small thing, as you said, but it's those small things. It's easy to do and it's easy not to do. So it's just making a choice and doing it, and then watching how you show up and how, when you do those things, those little things consistently, how your life can transform when you look back and you're like, wow, I set a reminder to drink water. Look where we are 6 months
here we
later, or
are.
3 months or a year, right?
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and dive into that, doing things on days that are bad. Why the name of the book? Tell me about the book. Tell me about the name of the book, and then why the name.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the name of the book is Never Quit on a Bad Day.
Mhm.
And that saying has just stuck with me for years, years and years. And because it applies to every area of life, right?
Mhm.
Gym, we're talking about working out. Well, there's going to be days, as we just said, don't necessarily feel like going to the gym. However, that's not the day you don't go. You push through it, you go, you do it. And so, with the name of the book, it's a saying that when more people truly sit with it and just embrace it into every area of their life, you can transform your life with it. Because I believe that growth happens in those challenging moments, those uncomfortable moments. So, pushing through and getting to the other side of that, that's where the growth is going to happen. And I'm not saying, because I joke, there's a chapter in the book where I talk about, because I can hear people being like, what do you mean, never quit anything?
Mhm.
No, that's not what we're talking about here. We're
Mhm.
just saying, because there are going to be times when you do need to transition or move forward into something else. It's just do that on a good day.
Mhm.
Do that when you're in a place of confidence, peace, and you're doing it because you want to move forward into the next chapter, if you will, of your life, the next, career move, the next goal, whatever that might be. Or maybe if something isn't serving you, as we talked about in terms of certain, relationships or friendships, if something isn't helping you move towards where you want to go, then it might be time to transition or move forward into something else. However, do it from a place when you're feeling great emotions, because most of the time when we quit something, it's because we're frustrated, we're
Mhm.
disappointed, we're angry, whatever it is, and it's coming from a place of negativity, versus making that decision from a place of confidence and peace and realizing, well, this is going to help me move forward. So that's why I'm quote unquote quitting or moving into something else.
Mm. Yeah, that's so powerful. And I'll give you again a perfect example of that. Last year, I got out of a business that I started and was in for 10 years, a fitness studio. I had a fitness studio for 10 years. Got out of it last year. And what happened was there were a bunch of things that led up to this day. We had our 10-year anniversary party on a Saturday. And the 3 months before that, a bunch of things happened and frustrations. And being a business, like that's what happens, right? When you have a business, like things just happen and you get frustrated. And there are definitely days where you're like, that's it, no more. I'm done. But I think as a business owner, like you joke, it's you say it, but it's like, okay, I'm not actually going to do it. So this day happened. The party, the 10-year anniversary happened, and the party was fun. Everyone had a great time. We had food trucks, we had bounce houses, and kids were there having fun. We had all this fun time. But the purpose was to attract new people, and there were probably, I don't know, we'll say 50 people that came through in a couple hours time. Oh, sorry. And with those 50 people, probably five of them were new people. Now, to understand the context, the town here is 12,000 people, so it's a small town anyway. So that's why the numbers are kind of shrunk. But at any rate, like five of them were new people. And it just felt demoralizing. And I'm like, ugh. Like it was that moment, right? The energy just like
Mm.
dropped out of the room. All the coaches who were there were like, they could all feel it. And after that, like I had that epiphany. I had a moment where I'm like, I don't know, this might just be time. But luckily, I went out of town that following week. I went to Florida for a week. And I'm like, okay, well, that'll give me a good opportunity to like sit and think, right? and not just make a stupid rash decision right now
Mm-hmm.
just because I'm frustrated. So went to
Mm-hmm.
Florida, and that whole week just thought and thought and what makes the most sense. Is this something that I'm just frustrated about? Is it time to turn the page? Do I move to the next thing? And ultimately, it came down to when I thought about moving along and getting out of the business, that was the thing that brought me like comfort. Like that's the thing that brought me like a relaxed feeling. Like I literally felt calm when I thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that happened, I'm like, okay, well, I think that's telling me it's time to move on. And that's exactly what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying. Like you got to be able to detach yourself from that moment and then
Yes.
actually make a rational decision.
Yes. And I love that because a couple things that you did too is like, the timing work that you were away from, you were like
Mm,
physically out of the
mhm,
town, you were in
mhm.
another place. And sometimes we need to do that to get that clarity, is sort of be in another area. Now, I'm not saying you have to hop on a plane and travel somewhere, but it
Right.
might just be a different surrounding, right? Kind of
Mhm,
physically being in another place. Maybe it's going for a walk. It's just even that. Maybe it's taking a few hours outside of what you're currently doing. And yes, there are times to transition and move forward, especially when you want to continue growing in life and accomplishing new goals and learning and whatever it is. And I love that because you felt a calmness, right? And I
mhm,
say a lot of times that happens. Like I share in the book, when I decided to retire from playing professional soccer, it wasn't after a bad day or bad game or bad season. It really was just at a time where I was like sitting with it. And I had a game before that played well and it great feedback. And we were in like very early in the season, preseason, if you will. And I just realized, I was like, you know what? No, I think I'm ready. And I felt
mhm,
that same thing, that calmness, that peace. And I was excited for starting because I had just started a business as well. And so I was excited for that next chapter. I was excited to be able to be more present for my friends and family because I missed a lot being on the road for
yeah.
games and things like that, which again, at that time in my life when I was playing, that was where I wanted to be. I just realized again, it was time, and I felt that sense
Mhm,
of peace. And again, it's a very personal decision. I go through a couple things in the book that people might want to evaluate, but really and truly, it's a personal decision when you should transition. And sometimes it might be reaching out to a mentor, someone who's been there before, who that can kind of counsel you or listen or
mhm,
just be there to bounce ideas off of. But it is a really personal decision when it's time to transition, and for every person they have to kind of evaluate those things. But I love what you said about finding that calmness, because I do
mhm,
feel a lot of times it's that calm when you're coming from a place of, it's not the anger, it's just time, and you feel that and you look forward to what's coming around the corner, if you will.
mhm. Yeah, and I think so to go back to not quitting on a bad day. And when I think about that, I think of it on like the things that you're trying to do to improve yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many people have an idea of personal development and they start something and then the bad day happens and then they quit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think about that idea is so prevalent for any kind of, whether that's starting to read a book, whether that's starting to exercise, whether that's starting to eat different, whether that's whatever, any kind of like trying to improve yourself. That is the perfect analogy, and or the perfect way to think about it is not quitting on those hard days, because the irony is that the habit is built during the hard day. That's when the habit becomes ingrained and becomes a habit. It's easy when the ship's just sailing along and the water's calm and everything's okay to show up. It's easy. But the second that some ripple happens in that water, that the wind starts to blow in a different direction, that's when the habit becomes a habit. That's when it comes from a new thing that I'm doing to this is who I am,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's why that idea is so important, to not quit whenever things get it. And when I say a bad day, like having worked with thousands of people in person, owning the studio, like the silliest things that would throw somebody off, the smallest things that would throw somebody off. You have to it's understanding you have to make it part of you. And you only make it part of you when you do it when it is uncomfortable to do.
Mm-hmm.
How do you start to do that?
It's just showing up. right? It's showing up. The days, if we want to talk about fitness, it's just get there,
Mm,
right? Sometimes it's just getting there.
mhm.
Sometimes it's just, if it's reading, you want to start a
How do you
habit of
convince
reading.
yourself to do it?
It has to become a part of who you are. And that's why I
Mhm.
say it comes down to the clarity of what are you looking to accomplish, right? Like
Mm,
having sense of that. I created a workbook all around your dream day. And really the easiest way of understanding it is like, for someone to really get a pen and paper or a journal or the workbook or whatever, but start to think of what does a dream day look like for that person from the moment you open your eyes to the moment you close your eyes. What do you experience? Who are you? Who are the people around you? Where do you live? What does your financial look like? What is your emotional status? All of it. And write in the present tense and really feel it. The reason I say that that's so powerful is because then you have a sense of who are you? What are you looking to accomplish? And what I find with having a dream day in terms of it, and it ties to who you are, is even when you have those frustrating moments, because
mm,
we all do, they're
mhm.
gonna come. If you don't have it right now, it's we all have it.
Yeah.
Is
Wait.
it pulls you forward, right? When you focus on where you want to go, then it does help you because now it's becoming part of who you are. And so it is really just about showing up. If you make a commitment to read every single day, and yes, your vision is 10 pages a day, sometimes it's starting with one. Just open the book and
Mm,
start and give yourself,
mm,
pat yourself on the back for showing up at the gym, opening the book, drinking your water, whatever that looks like, really celebrating those and giving yourself grace that, hey, you know what? Okay, today I missed reading. Well, guess what? It doesn't happen tomorrow. Don't let that happen back to back days.
mhm.
Tomorrow is a new day. Start fresh and celebrate those wins, right? Because in that, setting goals with yourself and holding yourself accountable to that breeds more success in the sense of, you're celebrating those little wins. And oftentimes I think people just kind of, oh well, I only did it 3 days. Well, no, great job, you did it 3 days. And okay, had a rough go, let's regroup. Either do it before you go to bed, or first you're saying, okay, I'm not going to let that happen again the next day, right? And so I feel like sometimes we're way too hard on ourselves to, if we didn't hit it one day, we just, well, now we pack it in. No,
Right.
that's okay. Like regroup and just don't let that happen 2 days in a row, and focus on who are you? Who truly are you looking to grow into in terms of that dream day and that person that you are in your core, and you're working towards becoming the best version of yourself every single day.
That's so good. Yeah. The way that I think about it is one day is a miss, 2 days is the beginning of a new habit.
Love
So
that.
so as soon as you
Yeah.
start that second day, you miss that second day, you are immediately developing the new habit of not doing whatever it is you were going to do. One day's one day, right? All
Yeah.
right, done. But you do it 2 days, you're starting to backslide. So um, that's that 2 day in a row thing is really it really is a big deal. It's something that needs to be paid attention to. But one day, man, you just can't beat yourself up about that. And I think that that's why so many people have a hard time from time to time. They just beat themselves up about the smallest things, about the smallest miss, or they convince themselves that it's a bigger deal than what it really is. Um, it's really the winning part. It's really the doing and then the acknowledging part. And that
Hmm.
seems so silly, the acknowledge part, right? Like, why should I acknowledge that I worked out every day that I said I was going to? It was only 3 days. Well, it's because we attach to emotion. And unless you actually pay attention to it and you go, oh, well, I actually did what I said what I was going to do, your mind won't start to develop into something new. It won't start to like become part of you if you just like let it pass you by. It's when you pay attention to it and you go, yes, I did that. That's who I am. I'm the kind of person that follows through with what I say I'm going to do. That's when it becomes you.
Absolutely. It's huge, right? And I
Mm,
agree with you. So many people just push it aside. Like I say, like a lot of times when I was coaching my team, it was like, if I use this saying, if you want to celebrate the harvest, you have to celebrate planting the seed, in
mm,
the sense that we always want these like we have these big goals, which I'm a big goal setter, right? So we have these big goals, yet we don't celebrate the fact that we did the little things that are going to get us to the big goal, right? If we want to accomplish the big goal, break it into smaller goals, break it into actual actionable items, and then celebrate yourself when you do those actionable items, because that's what's going to take you to having the big goal or accomplishing the big goal, but it starts with, again, you want a big harvest. Well, you have to plant the seed. It starts somewhere, right? And then you have to water and you have to do these consistent things. And the more we start celebrating those things, and I'm a big person about tying activity to rewards,
Mhm.
because especially as you're developing that habit, if you will, celebrate. If you set a goal, you're going to work out 12 times, 3 times a week, 12 times this month. When you hit that, give yourself a reward. Now,
Mhm.
it can be, when I say reward, it's not necessarily breaking the bank. It might be going for a massage, going for a walk with a friend, meeting a friend for coffee, taking a long bath, whatever it is, whatever gets you a little bit excited. Because then again, as you just said, you're tying the emotion to it, the
Mhm.
emotion, and you're celebrating yourself for sticking to your word and saying, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to show up 3 times a week for my workouts. And I did that. And then, yes, attach a reward to it, because that's that excitement as you're building this habit and ingraining it into really who you are in your core.
Mhm.
That's a way to keep yourself having those wins. And then it's fun too, because you can look at something and be like, yeah, I got that because I
Yeah.
went to the gym 12 times this month or
Yeah.
whatever it is, or I did that. So
Yeah.
I definitely love to have fun. That's important to me. And so with my team, I just realized so many people weren't celebrating those. They would just be like, well, I only did this. And it's like, not I only did this, I did this. Let's
Mhm.
celebrate that. And yeah, I think it's super important.
Yeah. You can't downplay follow through with what you say you're going to do. So many people don't follow through with their own word, with what they say they're going to do. If you're following through and you're doing what you say you're going to do and you are trusting yourself, that is a big deal. That's why
Mhm.
people become successful. They don't become successful because they got lucky. They don't become successful because they screwed a bunch of people over. They don't become, it's not that. It's because they trusted themselves to make decisions and then they followed through with those decisions. That's really what it comes down to, is you trusting that you're going to do what you say you're going to do.
Mhm.
Let me ask you this. What's one nugget in your book? This just popped into my head. I'm curious what your answer would be. What's one nugget in your book that people may not pull out, they may not recognize immediately, that would be easily overlooked? I'm curious what you would say.
Oh, interesting. That's a great question. I don't know. Oh, well, the way the book is, because this is part of it, was the book is a collection of short stories, right? So
Mm,
every chapter has a story, and at
mm,
the end of the story, there's a section called Reflections on Resilience.
mm,
And that part is, and I say this, read the book with a pen, because the Reflections on Resilience is really for the reader to look into their own life, their own journey, look forward into what they're looking to accomplish, and have a moment for themselves to really reflect on some of their own journey, to celebrate those small wins, to, maybe shift perspective. So it's written in a way where a lot of the lessons that I feel like someone could overlook are in those reflections on
mm.
resilience. So that's sort of why I'm like, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I would just encourage people, the gratitude, having
Mm,
the calendar invite in there is just so important. One thing I encourage people to do, and I love this, it's not necessarily something that's overlooked because it's included in the reflections on resilience, but it's a neat activity.
mm,
Is two of my contributors, a husband and wife, Dave and Roxanne Obiso, they share their story of one of their really rough, challenging moments.
mm,
And what they did is they actually recorded a video of themselves on this low day.
mm.
And I know it blows me away. And in
Wow.
the book, there's a QR code that you can scan to see this video of
Wow.
when they're having this low day, and they share where they're at. And they did that because they knew that where they were, it wasn't their permanent situation. They knew it was temporary. They made it as basically a declaration to themselves that they would not allow themselves to be in this situation ever again. They
Mm,
were going to do things differently. And so it's so neat in the sense of, like, for everyone listening, watching, it doesn't matter whether you're having a bad day, or just not, maybe you're not exactly where you want to be, but making that declaration, kind of saying to yourself, well, I'm going to record myself. And again, you don't have to share it with anyone, but record
mm,
yourself where you are right now for that so you can look back and see how far you've come. You can share where you're at right now, like a video, kind of video journal, if you will, to where you are right, like what you're going through right now, how you feel physically, emotionally, the people you're around, all those, important things, and have that so that you can look back and see yourself a year from now and where you've grown to. Because as we said, so oftentimes people don't realize like how far they've come because they don't take note of where they are right now. And I love that they did that. And it's really neat because you can scan the QR code to see the video of them. I think it's five, I
Crazy.
think it was 2018 or 2019,
Yeah.
but also all the contributors share a video of right now. So it's a video of encouragement. And even when you just look at the videos, the
Mm.
two videos, just their energy and where they're at right now, it's really, really cool. So that's something I encourage people to just do and have fun with, because it's incredible what you can accomplish when you just make a decision to move forward in life.
Uh, that would be incredible to see. I completely agree that like we just don't spend enough time thinking about our actual progress, even if you're not actively, I don't know. Let me rephrase that. If you've started something, people get so frustrated in their progress or what they deem as their lack of progress because they have the audacious goal in mind, right? They're thinking of this abstract thing way out here, so that when they're 6 weeks into the journey, they're not even, all they're doing is paying attention to this. And I'm not here yet. I'm 6 weeks into the journey, and I may have made leaps and bounds getting up to this, just that 6 weeks. But I'm not here yet. And it's amazing how frustrated people get from that and how many people quit because of this thing over here instead of paying attention to where they were right here and how much progress they've made in the meantime. So that would be a phenomenal thing to try.
Yeah, it's so neat. And when they shared it with me, I was just like, that is so powerful because you
Yeah.
have this to look back on and just be like, yeah, exactly as you said, like, look how far we've come. That's why even, I mean, we've been talking a little bit about fitness. That's why your fitness pictures are so important.
Yeah.
I was always like, fitness pictures, like I don't really want to, However, I'm so glad the trainers at my gym, basically, we were doing a fitness challenge and they forced you had to do the
Yeah.
before pictures
Hmm.
because I can look back at that. And even though at the time I was like, oh, yeah, I'm okay,
Hmm.
just to see how, again, and it's inspiring because then you look back and you're like, wow, look at what I've done. This keeps me going in terms of eating clean and getting my workouts in and my water. And, it's that extra. So it is okay we do need to look back, right? Look back to see how far you've come. And yes, focus on moving forward, focus on the future, and celebrate every single day what you're doing to move forward. However, you have to know where you're starting from.
Hmm.
And so the video idea is a great one. Or again, if we're talking fitness, if you have health goals, take some pictures, right? Things like that, because it allows you to just see what you've done and then pat yourself on the back and be like, yes, 6 week of progress is huge. Getting started is huge. Some
Yeah.
people don't even like realize,
Yeah.
hey, you going to the gym, or you saying, yes, I need help. Yes, I want to start a business and starting a business, or you getting a coach, having someone who, signing up to have a coach, or going to a life-changing personal growth event. Like even that needs to be celebrated because you're
Hmm.
taking the first step. Sometimes the first step is the hardest step to take, right? So celebrate that first step. And then it's just a matter of continuing to put one step in front of the other and continuing to, again, move forward.
The average time it took somebody to walk into the fitness studio was 18 months.
Wow.
18 months from the time they found out we were there, the time they found us to walking into the studio. 18 months.
Wow.
So that just goes to show how hard it is. Because what do?
Yes.
You drive by 1,000 times and you go, oh, I wonder what that place is about. And then you look on Facebook and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then you forget about it. And then you go back and you do some more research. That's what I mean. And then you convince yourself, okay, I'm going to go today. I'm going to go today. Then something comes up and no, I'm going to go today. I'm going to go do it. Okay, I'm going to go do it. So yeah, I mean, it takes courage to do that. And I think it's recognizing the courage that it takes to get started, that you can potentially have more courage to keep going forward.
Oh, I love that. I
So
love that.
um,
Powerful.
great conversation, Phoebe. I'll ask you one last question. What is one thing that you have learned after writing your book that you would say to somebody to help them get started? That's not in your book.
That's not in it.
Mm.
Ooh. Can I share, even though it's in it, because it
Oh yeah,
reminded me
that's
how
fine. That's fine.
important it is?
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's okay.
The power of perspective. The reason I say that is because, the title of the book is Never Quit on a Bad Day. And really, bad is kind of a relative term in the sense that we decide whether, we have these experiences in life and we decide whether it's quote unquote bad, it's good. Like we attach the emotion to it. And sometimes it's a matter of looking at a situation. And oftentimes we can do this once we're out of the situation, but something that we may have considered to be a bad situation, the power of our perspective to be able to look at that situation and is it as bad as we think it is, or did it set us up? Like, for example, you shared with your anniversary party, if you will, that you guys, you wanted to have a whole group of new people coming in. It didn't work like that. And that can be seen as a very bad, oh my gosh, this is terrible, and you had those emotions, and understandably so. That being said, in hindsight, was it a bad day, or did it set you up for something bigger and better and more? And so the reason I share that is because with the book and that coming out, there were things that happened leading up to the book that while I was in it, I was like, this is, it's funny that the name of the book is Never Quit on a Bad Day, because there were those moments when I was like,
Yeah.
oh. That being said, now looking back on those, were they bad, or were they part of the journey to help me push through, to gain that strength, to, get more excited about the next, but all these different things that came out of it because I chose to shift that perspective. And that is one of the lessons in the book. That being said, I think it's so powerful because we control the lens, as we were talking about before with, people that are, speaking into our lives. They're coming from their own lens of it. And it's powerful for us when we kind of like, we might have to clean our glasses a little bit. We might need to put on glasses
Yeah.
sometimes, and just to look at those situations that have happened in our life. And some of the ones that are the most challenging have truly catapulted, they've launched you into something else. And that's how it has happened for me. When I look back on a lot of situations, some of those tough ones have actually set me up for greater impact, greater purpose. And so, yeah, I challenge people with that perspective and the lenses, because our lenses, we can decide how we want to look at something. And again, I'm not minimizing, because there's some tough stuff that we all go through. Sometimes it's just, how can we look at it a little bit differently to help serve us versus to pull us down.
Very strong. Clean off your glasses, put them on, and shift your perspective.
Sometimes you need them. Sometimes we need them.
You
It's
need 'em.
important. We need to clean them.
Phoebe, where do people find you, and where do people find your book?
Yeah, so the book's available on Amazon and most book retailers online, so you can grab a copy there. You also, my website, neverquitonabadday.com, so you can head over there. There's a free chapter, so if you're not ready to get the full book, at least get that free chapter, because it's all about belief and our language. And it's a powerful, powerful chapter that I really want everybody to read, because it's an incredible story, and just really does make you think about your own story, as well as social media handles Never Quit on a Bad Day.
Very good. Phoebe, thank you so much, guys. Make sure you go back and listen to this episode again. Super powerful. Lots of good stuff in there. Phoebe, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Jared. Keep up the great work, because as you continue to inspire, you create this ripple effect of other people who continue to inspire as well, myself included. So thank you for starting this and for continuing to just move forward.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll say that with a little bit of humbleness. I appreciate that.